Yeah, I mean, even by this time of the course, you can recognize this is clearly not a columnar epithelium. It's stratified squamous, and it doesn't look like it's skin, so you can a reasonable thing. So, the thing about the esophagus that you need to keep in mind is that unlike the other regions of the GI tract, the muscularis mucosa is a lot more prominent. It's a big, thick puppy. And it runs parallel to the long axis of the esophagus. All right? So in a cross-section, the smooth muscle of the muscularis mucosae would be cut in cross-section. All right? So this is the muscularis mucosae here. Look how big and thick it is there. All right? Therefore, this space right here would be what? Exactly, lamina propria. So the whole mucosa is here. Now that's going to be a very important thing to remember when we get to female reproductive system. Because if you think about the vagina, it's got the same type of epithelium, right? Stratified squamous non-keratinides. You find that where there are frictional stresses. But it doesn't have the muscularis mucosa. And again, you should begin to be thinking about potential lookalikes, and I want to direct you to that website, the histology lookalikes that a medical student helped us put together. And that, the sooner you get on that, the better off you're going to be. Okay? So, what do we think these are right here? Yeah, esophageal glands. All right. At this point in the course, again, as I said in week 1, if you see a tubular profile, the first question you got to ask is what kind of epithelium is lining it, right? If the epithelium is simple squamous, and you've got other clues like red blood cells, you know you're looking at a blood vessel. If you're seeing something, excuse me, that's simple cuboidal, you got to start thinking gland or duct, okay? And then clearly we've got the muscularis propria out here, and you can see that it's essentially ripped out of the connective tissue. So this would be adventitial. In reality, the esophagus throughout its whole length is adventitial, except when it punches through the diaphragm into the abdominal cavity right before it joins with the stomach. Then you find the serosal surface. All right? So here, same song, second verse. Is this a cross or longitudinal section? Right, because the muscularis mucosa is in a longitudinal profile. Okay? Now, a lot of your slides were mid-esophagus, but you were hard-pressed to find any striated, visceral striated, or skeletal muscle. All right? I think this slide gives you a high-power look. And here you've clearly got, in here, I mean, this is the diameter of a single fiber. And again, I want to remind you that scale is important. You know, that's probably 100 microns right there. A smooth muscle, individual smooth muscle fiber or cell is only about 5 microns in diameter. So go back, you know, we think about those basics. And we did the tissue thing for a reason, so that it'll help you. And the other place where we have smooth and skeletal muscle today was the rectal anal junction. You know, with your knowledge of how to differentiate smooth and skeletal muscle, you can determine what the internal involuntary sphincter is and what the external voluntary is when you're talking about that. Okay, this is a scanning electron micrograph, not colorized like the one Nigel showed you in lecture, but we're looking down on to the surface of the stomach. Okay? A lot of your sections had mucus covering this, right? An eosinophilic thing. Some of it had extravasated red blood cells and other stuff in it. That's been removed here, so we're looking down. This circular profile is the apical surface of a simple columnar epithelial cell that we call surface mucus cell. All right? These cells then are arranged like that as you go down into the gastric pit, which I want to remind you is probably best thought of as what? What is the gastric pit? It's a duct to the gastric gland. Okay? So, looking down on the surface, this now here's that mucus coating that I was talking about. It's been removed there. So here we have a section of the whole mucosa, right? Remember we defined a mucosa as surface epithelium, lamina propria, and the muscularis mucosa. What are these? Really bright red. No, absolutely not. They're vessels, packed full of red blood cells. And it's nice because when you see that, you know that what tissue are the blood vessels in? In the gastric mucosa, what tissue do you find blood vessels? Do you find blood vessels in epithelial tissue?
No.
So what are they in? Exactly. This would be the space of the lamina propria. Okay? It's a little bit difficult in this section because you've got a gastric pit or a duct. The gland is a tubular gland that's coiled every which way. So you have all these circular profiles. All right? I'm going to show you a micrograph that will help make that clear. What I want to point out here is something that helps you identify either the fundic or body of the stomach, the mucosa from those regions. If you look at this, you can see that there's tri-layers or tri-colors, right? You've got this region here, you've got this region right here, and this region here. This is the gastric pit region, or the region where you have the ducts from these gastric glands emptied. Where you have a lighter staining, the way I see color, a slightly pinker region, is a region where what cells predominate? What are they producing? HCl. Which explains why you need all these surface mucus cells cranking out mucus over time, right?